Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere humid, loud, and very far from comfortable. Forget Hollywood war movies with slow motion heroics and clean uniforms. What we're about to step into is sticky, exhausting, and filled with more danger than glory. We're going back to the Vietnam War, into the thick jungle, where the air itself felt like an enemy and survival was a day-to-day gamble. And in this chaos, you've drawn one of the worst possible assignments. You're carrying a flamethrower. It sounds dramatic, maybe even powerful, like you've been handed a fearsome weapon. But the truth is much less glamorous. You're not some action star striding through fire with sunglasses on. You're hauling a 70-pound tank of fuel on your back in one of the hottest, wettest, most miserable climates on Earth. It's heavy, it's dangerous, and it turns you into the brightest target on the battlefield. The odds of making it through your tour without injury, illness, or worse are vanishingly small. The odds of being remembered as the hero you thought you'd be, even smaller. Before we dive in, take a second to get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights, let the hum of a fan fill the silence, and settle in. This isn't going to be fast-paced or exciting. It's going to be slow, heavy, and packed with details about what life was actually like for the soldiers forced into this role. And by the end, you'll understand why nobody envied the flamethrower operator. So, let's step into the jungle together. The air is already thick, the sun is already punishing, and the bugs are waiting for you. You wake up before dawn, not because you want to, but because the jungle doesn't really let anyone sleep for long. The air is already damp and heavy, pressing down on your chest like a wet blanket. You're sticky before you even sit up. Every inch of skin coated in sweat that never seems to dry, no matter how long the night is. Your uniform clings to you like a second, soggy skin. You can smell it before you even notice you're moving. That mix of mildew, sweat, and something sour that's been building since the day you put it on. You haven't had a clean change in weeks, maybe months. No one around you has either. Everyone stinks, but in a strange way, you've all stopped noticing. The smell just belongs here, the same way the mud does. The ground beneath you isn't solid. It's mud that seeps into everything. Your boots, your socks, your gear, even your dreams. You're lying in a makeshift foxhole that was supposed to give you some protection from gunfire, but it mostly just collects water. You're damp, your rifle is damp. The blanket you tried to wrap around yourself is damp. At some point in the night, you rolled over into a small puddle, and now the side of your face feels clammy, like it's been glued to the ground with sweat and grit. You peel yourself up, dirt sticking to your skin, and immediately a mosquito whines by your ear. It's not the first one, and it won't be the last. They've been swarming you all night, biting through your uniform, leaving welts that burn and itch. The more you scratch, the more you bleed, and the more they come back. Repellent doesn't work. Nets don't cover you completely. They always find a way in. You reach for your boots, though you never really took them off. No one does. If you do, your feet soften and split in the damp, the beginnings of jungle rot. So you keep them on, even when they're soaked, even when every step rubs your skin raw. Your socks are permanently wet, your toes wrinkled like they've been in a bathtub for weeks. Blisters open up, fill with mud, and fester. When you slide your boots on tighter, you feel grit between your toes and a squelch of damp cloth. But you don't even flinch anymore. That's just how your day begins. The noise of the jungle is everywhere, It never sleeps. At night, it was a chorus of frogs, cicadas, and unseen things moving through the underbrush. Now, as the first pale light filters through the canopy, birds scream in short, sharp bursts that sound less like song and more like warnings. Leaves rustle where they shouldn't, and every crack of a twig makes you wonder if it's one of your own men or someone creeping close in the darkness. You never really relax, even in sleep. Your body stays tense, your ears tuned for something out of place, a sound too heavy to be an animal, too sharp to be wind. You sit up straighter, and immediately the sweat beads along your spine, dripping under your shirt, pooling at the small of your back. Your helmet feels heavy and sticky on your head. The chin strap rubs, raw spots on your jaw. You reach for your rifle, making sure it's where you left it, propped against the side of the hole, coated in condensation. It needs cleaning again. It always needs cleaning. The moisture never lets go, and if you don't wipe it down constantly, the barrel and the magazine will rust. You know it could jam at the worst possible moment, and the thought eats at you every morning. You grab a rag from your pack, already stiff with oil and dirt, and begin the same routine, hands moving almost without thought, because this ritual is the only thing that feels certain here. The first real light brings the bugs in waves. Mosquitoes, flies, and things you don't even have names for land on your neck, your arms, the exposed skin around your wrists. You swat without thinking, but they keep coming. Ants march into your boots, and you shake one out only to find more crawling up your pant legs. Leeches are waiting in the mud, thin as threads until they latch on and swell with your blood. Sometimes you don't even feel them until you see the streaks running down your ankle, a little black body clinging stubbornly until you tear it off. The men around you curse softly as they pull their own off, flicking them into the mud where they wriggle like bits of rubber tubing. It's all normal now. Disgust has no place here. Only annoyance, and even that fades with time. You hear the coughing before you see anyone else. Someone down the line is hacking up the damp from his lungs, spitting into the mud. Another man mutters something under his breath, maybe a joke, maybe a complaint, but it's too quiet to catch. Everyone's voices are low in the morning. You don't raise your voice in the jungle. Sound carries. You move carefully, deliberately, because you never know who's listening or how close they might be. The silence after the coughs settles heavy, and you can almost feel the jungle listening back. Your stomach growls, though you're not sure why. Food doesn't excite you anymore. Breakfast is another packet of powdered eggs if you're lucky, or canned meat that tastes like grease and salt mixed together. Sometimes it's just crackers and instant coffee that never dissolves properly, leaving you with bitter grit at the bottom of your cup. The smell of someone lighting up a cigarette drifts across, sharp and acrid in the thick air. It's a comfort for some, a distraction for others, but it's also a beacon. Smoke doesn't blend in here. You wonder how many times it's been spotted by someone waiting to aim at it. Still, you understand why they do it. Anything that makes this morning feel less like punishment is worth the risk. The mud sticks to your gear as you lift it, making everything heavier. Your pack is soaked, straps cutting into your shoulders. The flamethrower waits nearby, tanks resting against the earth, glistening faintly in the early light. Just looking at it makes your chest tighten. It's heavy, more than 70 pounds with the fuel full, and strapping it on feels like shackling yourself to a coffin. You know the fuel inside could cook you alive if a bullet hits it right, or if you fall hard enough in the wrong place. But it's your job. You don't get to put it down. The insects are back at your ears, buzzing so close they sound like they're inside your head. You slap at them, but your hand just comes away damp with sweat. Your eyelids are swollen from bites you got while sleeping. Your knuckles itch from scratches that haven't healed, the skin raw from constant moisture. You rub at them without thinking, flaking away scabs only for them to bleed again. Everything here breaks down, your gear, your body, your will. The jungle is relentless, and it's only just morning. Around you, the men move with slow reluctance. Boots sink in the mud, packs are hefted, straps adjusted, weapons checked again and again. No one speaks much. There's no point in small talk when everyone already knows the day ahead means sweat, exhaustion, and fear. You can feel the heaviness settle over all of you as the light brightens, as the air thickens. There's no breeze. The canopy traps the heat, pressing it down into your lungs. You feel it before you even take your first step out of the hole. Your shirt sticks tighter to your back. The damp fabric clings under your arms, already itching. The jungle stretches ahead, endless, thick with vines, bamboo, and shadows that seem to move when you're not looking directly at them. You can't see far. 10 feet, maybe 15, before the green swallows everything. Every path is narrow, winding, choked with roots and branches that claw at your face, snag your gear, tear at your sleeves. You'll be pushing through it soon enough, but right now you just stand there, listening to the whine of insects, the rustle of leaves, and the pounding of your own heartbeat in your ears. You shift your weight, boots sucking at the mud, as though the earth itself wants to pull you down, hold you in place, keep you here forever. And maybe it does. Men vanish in this place, swallowed up by the ground, by the trees, by the war. You take a deep breath that tastes of mould and damp wood, and for a moment you wonder how long you'll last here. How many mornings you'll wake up in sweat and mud before you don't wake up at all. The thought lingers, heavy and unwanted, but you can't shake it. You shoulder your pack, glance at the fuel tanks that wait like anchors, and wipe the sweat from your brow, though it's already replaced by more. The morning has only begun, and you're already exhausted. It waits for you every morning, squatting in the mud like a silent threat. 2 steel tanks strapped together with hoses snaking out, capped with nozzles and valves that always look like they were bolted on in a hurry. You've been told it's your weapon, your edge in a fight, the thing that makes you more dangerous than the men around you. But it never feels like that. It feels like punishment. It feels like carrying death on your back, and not just for the enemy. The weight is the first thing you notice, because you never forget it. More than 70 pounds before you add your pack, your rifle, your helmet, and everything else that the army insists is essential. Strapping it on means bending forward just to balance, the tanks pressing against your spine, straps digging into your shoulders until the muscles knot tight. Every step sinks deeper into the mud. Because of it, every incline turns into a battle. Every mile stretches out longer than it should. You can't sit comfortably with it. You can't lie down without twisting awkwardly. And you can't ever really stop thinking about the fact that you're basically wearing a giant metal bullseye. The straps are coarse, stiff canvas that cut into your skin, rubbing until you're raw. Sweat soaks into them within minutes, softening the fabric just enough to stick like glue. They never dry. You wake up with them damp, you march with them damp, and when you finally unbuckle at night, your shirt is plastered with salt and grime. The metal fittings leave bruises on your shoulders, purple patches that don't fade before new ones bloom. Your lower back throbs constantly, and every time you shift, the tanks shift with you, pulling one way or the other, dragging your muscles until you feel twisted and crooked. The sound it makes is almost worse than the weight. A faint slosh with every step, fuel slapping inside the tanks. You can't ignore it. It reminds you with every move what you're really carrying. Gallons of gasoline, thickened with napalm, volatile, sticky, and ready to ignite if something goes wrong. You try not to picture it, but you've heard the stories. A lucky bullet punching through the tank, a fragment of shrapnel sparking in the wrong place, one bad stumble into a fire. And you're not just wounded, you're cooked. Men don't survive that. The fear rides with you, heavier than the metal, heavier than the straps, a voice whispering that you're not armed, you're doomed. When you walk with the others, you can feel the way their eyes drift toward you. No one says it out loud, but they know. They know you're carrying something that draws attention. Enemies spot the tanks first. They know what they are, what they mean, and they'll take any shot they can get at them. You're not just a soldier in the line, you're the target. Everyone around you knows that standing too close to you is a risk, like sheltering next to a crate of dynamite. The space around you feels different, thinner somehow, as if the air itself doesn't want to be near you. The nozzle, when you pick it up, isn't sleek or impressive. It's clumsy, awkward, more like a heavy garden sprayer than a weapon. You've been told how far it can project, how long the fuel will last, but none of that makes it feel any less ridiculous. The trigger is stiff, the hose kinks at the worst times, and you've seen it sputter instead of spray, belching out a half-hearted dribble that turns into a flare at your feet. You've been warned to be careful where you point it, careful how you handle it, careful how you move. But careful doesn't mean safe. Nothing about this thing is safe. You remember the training field where they showed you how it worked. Standing far back, instructors barked orders while some unlucky recruit lit the first stream. The roar was deafening, the heat immediate, and even from a distance you felt the skin on your face tighten. They told you it was effective, that nothing stood in its path, that bunkers, tunnels, and dense vegetation all gave way when fire poured over them. But you also saw how quickly the tank emptied, how the operator was left gasping under the weight after just a few seconds of flame. They never mentioned how the recoil jolted through your arms, how the smoke blinded you instantly, how every burst left you coughing and staggering. They didn't say that the fire clung to anything it touched, that even your own boots could ignite if you stumbled through the wrong patch. You only learned that later, when the demonstration turned into reality. The jungle makes it worse. Every vine, every low branch, every tangle of bamboo grabs at the tanks. You hunch forward, pushing through, and feel the straps tighten across your chest. Sometimes a branch snaps back, striking metal, making a sharp clang that echoes louder than it should. Every sound feels like it betrays you, like it tells anyone listening where the flamethrower is. And in this place, being identified is the beginning of the end. Your body never adjusts to the weight. Men told you it would, that you'd grow used to it, that it would become routine. They were wrong. The ache just digs deeper into your muscles. A constant reminder that you're hauling something designed more for terror than practicality. You stumble more often, your balance is worse, and when the mud sucks at your boots, you have to fight twice as hard to pull free. Each hill climb feels like a punishment specifically designed for you. While others carry rifles and packs, you drag your own execution device. You curse it under your breath, curse the straps, curse the men who decided this weapon belonged on a human back instead of a machine. But you still shoulder it, because the alternative is worse. Refusing isn't an option. You notice how the jungle reacts when the flame bursts. Birds scream and vanish, leaves curl instantly, the smoke climbs and settles like a choking curtain. The fire doesn't discriminate. It clings to wood, to soil, to flesh. You've seen what it does up close, the way it turns everything into blackened wreckage. You've seen what it does to people, though you try not to think about it. The smell lingers long after the fire dies. A sickly sweet stench that clings to your clothes, your hair, your memory. You can't scrub it off. You can't forget it. At night, when you unbuckle the straps and set the tanks down, you feel lighter, but not free. The ache stays in your shoulders. The indentations in your skin don't fade. You lie in the mud, knowing the tanks are still there, a few feet away waiting for you in the morning. They never really leave you. You dream of them, hear the slosh of fuel in your sleep, feel the weight pressing on your chest even when you're flat on your back. You wake with a start, gasping, convinced for a moment that something has ignited, that you're already burning. It takes minutes to realise it's just the heat of the jungle pressing down on you again. There's no glory in carrying it. No pride. You don't feel powerful. You don't feel like some terrifying warrior. You feel slow, marked, and disposable. The men with rifles look at you differently, not with envy but with pity. Everyone knows what carrying fire really means, and every step you take with it reminds you that in this war, some jobs are worse than others. Yours is one of the worst. The morning doesn't bring relief. It brings food, if you can call it that. You reach into your pack, already stiff with mildew, and pull out a brown pouch stamped with numbers and block letters. This is your breakfast. No kitchen, no stove, no table to sit at. Just a damp foxhole or a patch of mud, and the faint hope that what's inside will keep you upright for another day. The pouch crinkles in your hand, already softened by humidity. You tear it open with your teeth, the paper tasting like dust, and stare at the treasure inside, powdered eggs. It's not much to look at. A yellowish dust that clumps at the edges, smelling faintly of sulphur and cardboard. The instructions printed on the packet insist you just need water to make it edible. But here, water is another gamble. You've filled your canteen from a stream more than once, pretending the purification tablets would do their job, pretending you didn't notice the dead insects or floating leaves. You splash some in anyway, stirring with a dirty spoon, watching the powder turn into a gritty paste. It doesn't resemble eggs. It doesn't resemble food. It's more like paint mixed too thin, and it slides around the spoon in slow globs that cling to the metal. You take a bite, because you don't have a choice. It's bland and chalky, sticking to your teeth, coating the roof of your mouth. You chew, though there's nothing to chew, just grit that grinds against your molars. You swallow and feel it scrape down your throat, leaving a film behind that makes you want to cough. Around you, the other men are eating the same thing. No one comments. There's nothing to say. One mutters something about how he'd give a month's pay for bacon, and the laugh that follows is short and humourless. The sound dies quickly in the damp air. Sometimes you get lucky and there's a tin of canned meat instead. Spam mostly. A block of pink salt and grease that slides out with a wet sucking noise, hitting the lid of the canteen cup with a wobble. You slice it with your knife, though slicing is generous. It's more like sawing through rubber. You eat it anyway, chewing the fatty edges that never quite dissolve, trying not to gag as the texture coats your tongue. The salt burns your mouth, but at least it tastes like something. The crackers are worse. Hard squares that shatter into dry shards, cutting the inside of your cheeks. They taste like sawdust and glue, and they absorb every drop of moisture in your mouth instantly. You choke them down with water or the instant coffee packet, the one luxury that manages to feel more like punishment. The granules never dissolve properly, floating in clumps at the surface of the lukewarm liquid, bitter enough to make your eyes water. You sip it anyway, grimacing at the grit that settles at the bottom, because you know you'll need the caffeine, however weak it is. Sometimes the rations include a packet of fruit, a little cube of something that's supposed to be peaches or pears, but months of storage have turned it into a sugary mush sealed in heavy syrup. You peel the lid back, the metal sharp under your nails, and take a bite. It's sweet in a way that doesn't feel right, syrup coating your lips, sticking to your fingers. Flies appear almost immediately, landing on the rim, buzzing around your face. You wave them off, but they always come back, drawn to the sugar, like they've been waiting just for this. You eat faster, swallowing chunks that taste more like chemicals than fruit, then toss the empty tin into the mud, where it joins a dozen others rusting quietly in the damp. The worst part isn't the taste, it's the sameness. Day after day, the same packets, the same cans, the same chalky eggs and salty meat. You stop tasting them after a while. Your body just accepts them, a machine taking in fuel, and the idea of flavour becomes something you only think about when you're half asleep, imagining a real breakfast back home. Pancakes, toast, bacon sizzling in a pan. You can almost smell it, almost hear the hiss of fat on a stove. Then you look down at the greyish paste sticking to your spoon, and the thought fades. Flies crawl across your hands, your face, your food. You swat at them lazily, but they keep coming, buzzing loud in your ears, crawling into the corners of your mouth when you try to chew. You give up after a while and let them land, because swatting just makes you more tired. The jungle doesn't care that you're trying to eat. It throws everything it has at you, even at breakfast. The cigarettes come out after. Short, harsh drags in the thick air. The smoke mixes with the smell of eggs and canned meat, settling over the group like a blanket. Some men savour it, closing their eyes, letting the nicotine calm their nerves. Others just puff quickly, flicking ash into the mud, more out of habit than comfort. You breathe it in whether you smoke or not. It clings to your uniform, your gear, your hair. Another layer added to the permanent stink that follows you everywhere. The coffee leaves your stomach queasy, but you force it down, because without it, the next march feels impossible. The food doesn't energize you. It just fills the empty space. You still feel hungry after, a hollow ache in your gut that never quite goes away. No matter how much you eat, you're never satisfied. The meals aren't made for comfort. They're made for calories, enough to keep your legs moving, your arms lifting, your heart beating. That's it. You look at the flamethrower tanks resting nearby, the straps already damp from dew, and you wonder how you're supposed to haul them again after this. The food sits heavy in your stomach, weighing you down instead of lifting you up. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, leaving a smear of grease mixed with dirt, and toss the empty packet aside. Another crumpled pouch joins the growing pile that will never really disappear in the mud. Breakfast is over quickly. There's no lingering, no savouring, no waiting for second helpings. Just a few minutes of chewing, swallowing, and swatting at flies before everyone rises, straps their gear, and prepares for the next endless march through heat and mud. You glance down at the spoon in your hand, sticky with yellow paste that never quite washed away, and shove it back into your pack. It will smell later when the heat climbs and the sweat soaks through everything, but you don't bother cleaning it. You don't have the time and you don't have the energy. You shoulder the tanks, feeling the straps cut again, and take a deep breath that tastes faintly of instant coffee and sulphur. Breakfast is done. The day has only just begun. You can tell yourself that the enemy is the Viet Cong, or the NVA, or the faceless figure waiting somewhere in the tree line. But most mornings it feels like the real enemy is what you're wearing. The uniform they handed you back at base was crisp, stiff, and meant to look presentable. Out here, it's just another layer of punishment. The fabric never breathes. It doesn't matter if it's day or night, wet or drier than usual. The cloth clings to you like a damp rag wrapped around your skin. It holds every drop of sweat, every smear of mud, every streak of blood. You don't remember what it felt like to wear something clean. The smell never leaves. Mildew, sweat, insect repellent, gun oil. It all soaked in. A permanent fog that follows you wherever you go. The shirt scratches against your shoulders, stiff where the salt from your sweat has dried into ridges. The collar rubs your neck until the skin cracks, red and raw. The sleeves ride up and cut into the crook of your arms, sticky patches of sweat forming that never dry. Every movement feels abrasive, like sandpaper against your body. You've tried to loosen it, roll the sleeves, anything to make it tolerable, but the jungle laughs at comfort. Rolling your sleeves only gives the insects more skin to chew on. Leaving them down traps more sweat. Either way you're miserable. The trousers are worse. They're baggy, but somehow always manage to stick to you. Mud creeps up from the bottom, drying into stiff crust that cracks when you move, only to be replaced by another layer when you sink into the muck again. Leeches find their way inside, slipping past the cuffs, worming up your legs until you feel a strange, wet tickle that means something is feeding on you. By the time you notice, they're fat and swollen, gorged on your blood. You peel them off, their tiny teeth leaving small wounds that bleed for hours. You salt them, burn them, flick them into the mud, but it doesn't matter. More will come, they always do. Your socks never stand a chance. They start the day damp and end the day drenched. You take them off at night, wring them out, hang them over a branch, and wake up to find they're just as wet, only colder. Putting them back on feels like sliding your feet into sponges. Your toes prune and wrinkle, skin whitening and softening until it splits. Jungle rot waits for any chance to sink in. At first it's just itching, then the skin peels, then the raw flesh underneath opens into sores. Infection follows. You've seen men lose nails, lose skin, lose half their foot to it. The corpseman tells you to change your socks often, keep your feet dry, You laugh because it's impossible. Dry doesn't exist here. Boots are no better. They're supposed to be sturdy, built for terrain like this. Instead they feel like buckets. The mud sucks at them with every step, pulling you down, filling them with grit and water until they slosh with each move. They rub your heels raw, blisters forming and bursting in the same day. You tighten the laces and feel the leather cut into your ankles, leaving bruises that never heal. You loosen them and risk stepping out of them entirely when the muck grabs too hard. Either way, your feet lose. They're swollen, blistered, and constantly throbbing. A dull ache that keeps you awake at night. The gear adds another layer of misery. Straps dig into your shoulders, belts cut into your waist, webbing rubs your chest raw. The constant weight of the flamethrower tanks pushes everything down tighter, grinding fabric into your skin until you're covered in rashes. Every buckle feels like it was designed to pinch. Every strap like it was meant to chafe. Even the helmet turns into a punishment. It's heavy, unbalanced, and the inside lining never dries. The straps under your chin rub until your skin splits, leaving sores that sting with every drop of sweat. You try to shift it, adjust it, but no matter what you do, it finds a new place to bite. Bugs find every gap. Ants crawl inside your boots, biting until your ankles swell. Mosquitoes land on the back of your neck, where the collar doesn't reach, biting through a fabric anyway, leaving welts that itch until you scratch them raw. Spiders crawl across your chest at night, drawn to the warmth under your shirt. Sometimes you wake up with red lines where they've walked, or worse, small punctures where they've bitten. You get used to the crawling sensation. You stop reacting to every tickle on your skin because there are too many. You let them bite, let them feed, because fighting them is pointless. When it rains, the uniform turns into a trap. It soaks through in seconds, heavy and clinging. The fabric sticks to your legs, wrapping tight so you can barely move. The water pools in your boots, filling them until every step splashes. The rain never stops quickly. It pours for hours, sheets of it pounding the canopy, dripping through in cold streams. You're soaked to the bone, shivering in the heat, teeth chattering while your skin prunes even more. When the rain finally ends, the sun bakes everything into steam. Your uniform dries, but not cleanly. It hardens, stiff with salt and mud, creasing into rough edges that scratch you raw. You think about what it would feel like to wear cotton again, to put on clean socks, to step into shoes that weren't filled with mud. It's almost painful to imagine. Back home, you complained about ironing, about tight collars, about stiff leather boots. Here you'd give anything for them. Anything that didn't smell like mould, didn't stick to your skin, didn't rot you from the feet up. But there's no way out. You wear what they gave you. You endure what it does. And you pray that your skin holds together long enough to see another sunrise. Even when you strip down at night, the uniform doesn't leave you. The smell clings to your skin. The sores sting. The bites throb. You lie awake scratching at your ankles, rubbing at your shoulders, trying to find one spot on your body that isn't raw or aching. There isn't one. The cloth has claimed you completely. You're not wearing it anymore. It's wearing you. Clean is a word you stop using. Out here, it doesn't exist. You wake up sticky with sweat, coated in mud, speckled with bites, and it never gets better. At first, you tell yourself you'll wash when you can, maybe at the next stream, maybe when the unit sets up for the night. But the stream is just another risk. It looks clear at first, water glinting through the trees, rippling over rocks, but you know better. Upstream, someone else is standing in it, bathing, pissing, scrubbing their socks in the same water you're about to splash on your face. There's always a dead bug floating by, sometimes worse. Still, when the chance comes, you kneel down, scoop a handful, and rub it over your skin. It feels good for a second, cool against the heat, but it doesn't last. The water's dirty before it even dries. You strip your shirt off sometimes, wring it out, slap it against a rock, then pull it back on while it's still dripping. It's not clean, just less heavy. Your skin underneath is already raw, your chest and back covered in small rashes where the cloth rubs constantly. You try to wash them, scrubbing with your hand, but the water only softens the skin more. When you put the shirt back on, the fabric sticks tighter. The itching comes back before the shirt is even buttoned. Soap isn't part of the plan. You might get a bar in your pack if you're lucky, something small, wrapped in wax paper, smelling faintly medicinal. You hoard it, using it sparingly, because once it's gone, there won't be another for weeks. Even when you use it, it lavers poorly in the muddy water, mixing with grit to form a paste that feels worse than the dirt it was meant to remove. You rinse and rinse, but you're never sure if the film on your skin is soap or just more grime. Eventually you stop bothering. Shaving is another kind of torture. The order still comes down. Keep your face clean, keep the razor moving. As if it matters in the jungle. As if a smooth jaw makes any difference when you haven't washed properly in weeks. You pull out the dull blade, splash a little water from your canteen, and scrape. It drags across your skin, tugging at hairs, leaving behind tiny cuts that sting instantly in the sweat. The blood mixes with grime, dries into rusty smears on your chin. You rub it away with a damp rag and call it done. That rag is your closest thing to hygiene. A strip of cloth, always damp, always smelling faintly of mildew. You wipe your face with it, your arms, maybe the back of your neck. You wring it out in your canteen cup, watch the brown water drip away, then fold it back into your pack. It never dries. At night you pull it out again, wipe at your feet, your groin, anywhere the sores itch the worst. It doesn't help much. Sometimes it makes the itching worse, but it's all you've got. Your teeth rot slowly, and there's nothing you can do. Toothbrushes exist somewhere, but not here. You might chew on a twig, if you find one that's not too bitter, scraping at the plaque with splinters. Most of the time, you just swish water and hope. The taste in your mouth is constant. Sour, metallic, always faintly rotten. Gums swell, bleed when you bite into hard crackers, ache in the heat. You spit blood into the mud and move on, knowing there's no fixing it. A toothache here isn't an inconvenience. It's a sentence. If it gets bad enough, someone might pull the tooth out with pliers. That's the only option. Bathing in the rain is the closest thing to relief. When the sky opens up, you tilt your head back, open your mouth, and let it pour over you. You strip your shirt off, scrub at your arms, lift your face to the downpour. For a few minutes it feels right. The stink washes away, the grime loosens. But the rain always brings mud, and when it stops, you're covered in streaks of brown. Your clothes plastered to you heavier than before. You smell like wet canvas, and by morning the mildew sets back in. The freshness never lasts, your hair never dries properly either. It mats down against your scalp, clumped with sweat and grease. Lice thrive there, tiny movements that keep you scratching until your nails cut grooves into your skin. You sit with your helmet off, fingers digging through your hair, flicking the bugs away only to feel them again minutes later. You stop telling anyone, everyone has them. It's just another misery that gets folded into the routine. The corpsmen talk about diseases that start this way, skin that never heals, wounds that fester, fungus that creeps in through cracks between your tools. You've seen it. Men pulled off the line with ulcers on their legs, flesh eaten away until bone shows through. They soak the wounds in disinfectant, wrap them in bandages, but the jungle always wins. Infection spreads fast here, carried by dirt, water, bugs, and sweat. You wonder sometimes if every scratch you get is the one that will put you under. You smell yourself constantly. You don't even need to lift your arms. It's in your nostrils, your hair, the collar of your shirt. The men around you smell the same, all blending together into one heavy stench of rot, sweat, and smoke. It's inescapable. When the wind shifts, it carries it back to you, reminding you that there's no escape from what you are here. A walking pile of damp cloth and rotting flesh, trying to look like a soldier. At night you dream about showers, clean tiles, hot water pounding down, soap that foams and rinses away. You wake up, and for a moment you can almost believe it, until you roll over and feel the damp fabric sticking to your back again. The smell hits you before you open your eyes, and the dream disappears. All you've got is the muddy stream, the damp rag, and the faint hope that your skin holds together one more day. It sits in the mud like it knows something you don't. 2 steel tanks strapped together, hoses snaking out, a clunky nozzle attached at the end, all of it shining faintly with condensation. You've been told it's your weapon, your responsibility, the reason you're here. But it doesn't feel like a weapon. It feels like a sentence. You look at it in the morning and your shoulders ache before you even strap it on. You know the moment it's buckled tight, you'll be bent forward under its weight, dragging it step by step through the muck, feeling every ounce settle into your spine. The numbers don't seem real until you carry it. 70 pounds doesn't sound like much on paper, but strapped to your back, in the heat, in the wet, through the jungle, it's crushing. It pushes you forward when you climb, pulls you down when you stumble, digs into your shoulders, until the straps carve deep grooves into your skin. Your shirt soaks with sweat, softens the fabric, then grinds it against you until you're raw. You adjust the straps, tighten, loosen, but it doesn't matter. The tanks always win. Every step reminds you what you're carrying. The faint slosh of fuel inside, gallons of thickened gasoline mixed with napalm. It's not just heavy. It's volatile. A single bullet, a shard of shrapnel, even a bad fall could turn the whole thing into an inferno. You imagine it sometimes, against your will. The hiss of a round punching through the tank, the sudden burst of heat, the way your body would ignite before you even had time to scream. You've seen it happen to others. You've smelled it. That sweet, clinging stink of flesh, burned with gasoline, doesn't leave you. You smell it in your clothes, in your hair, even when there's no fire near. The men around you know it too. They don't say much, but you catch their glances. They don't want to be too close. They know you're a magnet for gunfire. They know the enemy looks for the man with the tanks, the one who can spew fire into bunkers, tunnels, or tree lines. If they see you, they'll aim for you first. You're not just carrying extra weight, you're carrying a target. The space around you is quieter, emptier. No one wants to be next to a bomb that walks on two legs. When you grip the nozzle, it doesn't feel like precision. It feels like wrestling a piece of farm equipment. The handle is stiff, the trigger harder than it looks. The hose kinks when you need it most. When it works, it roars with a sound that shakes your chest. Fire bursts out, a long stream that clings to whatever it touches. Trees, bunkers, bodies, nothing shakes it off. The flame sticks and spreads, smoke pouring out until you can't see through the haze. The heat washes back over you instantly, searing your face, tightening the skin on your arms. Even behind the mask of sweat, you feel singed. It doesn't last long. A full tank might give you 40 seconds of fire, maybe less if you're panicked. 40 seconds for £70. You haul it all day for less than a minute of use. When it's spent, you're left carrying dead weight, hunched under metal and fumes, praying no one notices you're already empty. You can't just toss it away either. The tanks are too expensive, too rare. You haul them whether they're full or drained, whether they might save you or just drag you into the ground. Maintenance is a nightmare. You're told to clean it, keep the valves clear, keep the hoses untangled. But the jungle doesn't care about manuals. Mud cakes the fittings, vines snag the hoses, grit clogs the nozzle. You scrape it off with your knife, wipe it down with a filthy rag, slap the parts back together, and hope it doesn't misfire. When it sputters, the fear is worse than gunfire. A dribble of fuel at your feet, a weak hiss of flame too close to the tanks, and you're seconds away from disaster. You curse under your breath, pound the handle, pray it catches properly. When it does, relief comes like air after drowning. When it doesn't, your stomach twists with the thought that maybe this is the time it takes you with it. The heat is constant. Even when it's not firing, you feel it. The metal against your back radiates warmth, soaking into your skin. The tanks bake in the sun, hot to the touch by midday, sweat running down your spine in sheets. Sometimes you wonder if the heat you feel is real, or just your brain reminding you what you're strapped to. Either way, you can't escape it. You sweat, you itch, you burn without flame. At night, you unbuckle the straps and let the tank slump into the mud. Your shoulders scream with relief, but it's never enough. You lie down, feel the deep ache radiating from your back, the bruises along your collarbones, the raw patches where the straps rubbed. You close your eyes, but you still hear it. The slosh of fuel, the hiss of fire, the roar that shakes your chest. You dream about the tanks tipping, leaking, catching. You wake with a start, sweating harder than before, convinced you're already on fire. The army calls it a weapon. The men around you call it crazy. You know what it really is? It's a coffin with straps. You carry it because someone has to. You fire it because orders demand it. And every time you feel the weight settle against your spine, you wonder if today is the day it finally does what it was always meant to do. It starts before the jungle, long before the smell of mud and rot becomes part of your skin. It starts back in training, on bases that were supposed to prepare you for war. You remember standing in the sun, lined up with other young men, waiting for someone to hand out assignments. The lucky ones got rifles, radios, maybe machine guns. You didn't. You got pointed at, told to step forward, and introduced to the flamethrower. No one cheered. No one volunteered. They just looked at you, some with pity, some with relief that it wasn't them. You didn't feel chosen. You felt condemned. The The first time you saw it up close was on a training field, not in combat. It was clean then, polished, tanks shining under the sun. An instructor barked about its power, its range, its effectiveness. He talked about clearing bunkers, tunnels, trenches. He said it inspired fear like nothing else, that enemies would break and run when they saw fire coming their way. His voice carried pride, like he was handing you a medal. You stared at the straps, the tanks, the nozzle, and thought only about the weight. They made you practice with it empty first, strapping it on, walking, kneeling, lying down with it digging into your spine. You learned quickly that balance was everything. Lean too far forward and you tipped. Lean back and the tanks pulled you down. Getting up off the ground was clumsy, almost humiliating, the straps digging in while the other recruits tried not to laugh. You adjusted, learned to hunch just enough to move carefully, to accept that falling would be part of it. Then came firing drills. They filled the tanks, handed you the nozzle, and told you to point it down range. The first pull on the trigger nearly ripped your arm out of its socket. The flame burst forward with a roar that drowned out every other sound. Heat blasted back instantly, tightening the skin on your face, burning your throat with smoke. Even though you were aiming at empty bunkers and wooden targets, it felt wrong. Too loud, too bright, too much. The fire clung to everything it touched, crawling over walls, sticking to the ground, refusing to die. You wanted to look away, but the instructor barked at you to keep firing. So you did, until the tanks were empty, and all that was left was smoke and the acrid stench of gasoline. They taught you the basics of maintenance, though it was never enough. How to clear a clogged nozzle, how to tighten a valve, how to recognise when the tanks were leaking. You watched demonstrations where instructors lit the nozzle too close to the tanks, laughed it off, and told you it was safe if you were careful. But you knew better. You saw the black scorch marks left on the training ground. You heard the stories, the whispered ones that weren't in the manuals. Men cooked alive when their tanks ruptured. Operators shot first in every engagement because the enemy knew what they carried. None of that was in the lesson plan, but everyone learned it anyway. The hardest part wasn't the firing. It was the drills that came after. Running with it on your back. Crawling with it through sand, through mud. Climbing walls, dragging yourself over obstacles, trying not to get tangled in hoses and straps. The weight crushed you after minutes, left you gasping for air, your legs trembling. The instructors shouted that you had to move faster, that hesitation would get you killed. You tried, but every step felt like dragging an anchor. By the end of each day, your back throbbed, your shoulders bruised, your legs gave out. You slept like a stone, only to wake up sore and stiff, knowing you had to do it again. No one wanted the job. Everyone knew it. When they called for flamethrower operators, eyes dropped to the ground. Men shifted, shuffled, tried not to be noticed. If you were tall, broad, strong, they looked at you harder. They wanted someone who could carry it. You fit the description. You were unlucky. They told you it was an honour, that the flamethrower was feared, that you were essential. You nodded, but deep down you understood what it really meant. You'd be carrying the most dangerous weapon and the least chance of survival. There was no glamour in training, no pride in mastering it. You didn't brag about hitting targets. You didn't smile when fire poured out in waves. You just felt tired. The more you learned, the heavier it became. You knew you'd carry it into the jungle, where the obstacles weren't wooden walls or dummies, but thick vines, mud pits, and men who wanted you dead before you even pulled the trigger. By the time training ended, you weren't confident. You were resigned. You knew how to strap it on, how to fire it, how to clear a jam. You also knew it wouldn't matter. Out there in real combat, the manual didn't apply. The only thing that mattered was whether you could stay alive long enough to use it. And no one, not even the instructors, could teach you that. The heat starts before the sun even rises. You wake already sweating, your shirt damp, your chest sticky, the inside of your helmet slick with condensation. The jungle never cools. At night it only shifts from one kind of heat to another, less direct but still heavy, like breathing through a wet cloth. By morning it thickens again, pressing down until you feel like you're walking under a blanket you can't shake off. You take a breath and it feels warm, heavy, as if the air itself is tired of moving. Humidity doesn't sound dangerous until you live in it. Every inhale drags moisture into your lungs. Every exhale leaves your mouth tasting like mildew. Sweat pours constantly, rolling down your face, pooling at your collar, soaking through your shirt until the fabric is plastered against your back. You wipe at your forehead, and the moisture is instantly replaced. There's no such thing as dry. Even your skin feels damp when you lie still, a permanent layer of sweat that refuses to evaporate. The gear makes it worse. Straps grip tighter when they're wet, cutting into your shoulders, sliding when you try to adjust them. The metal of the tanks warms in the sun until it radiates heat against your spine. Your rifle grows hot to the touch, the barrel burning your hand if you forget to shift your grip. The canvas of your uniform clings, trapping the moisture, keeping your body steaming inside a cocoon of damp cloth. Every step feels heavier, every movement slower, as if the air itself has decided to drag you down. Your skin suffers first. Salt from the sweat dries into ridges that scratch every time you move. Rashes spread under your arms, across your thighs, anywhere the fabric rubs against damp skin. The itching is constant, the burning worse when you scratch. You watch your own flesh break open into red streaks, then darken into sores. You smear on ointment when you have it, powder when you don't, but the relief lasts minutes at best. Then the cycle starts again. New sweat, new salt, new rashes. Your hands never feel dry. They're slick on your weapon, damp when you grip the nozzle, slippery even when you try to wipe them off on your trousers. Blisters bloom where the skin softens, then burst, leaving raw patches that sting with every touch. You tape them when you can, but the tape peels away quickly, soaked through before the day is half over. You start to forget what it felt like to have calloused, dry hands. Out here, your fingers are always pruned, your nails always soft, as if you've been sitting in a bath for months. Heat wraps around your head inside the helmet, sweat dripping down your temples, pooling at the base of your neck. The lining squishes when you shift, soaked through. You take it off for a moment's relief, but the sun burns your scalp instantly, and the buzzing of insects fills the gap. You put it back on, damp and heavy, and accept that you'll never stop feeling like your skull is trapped inside a boiling pot. The jungle magnifies it all. The canopy blocks the breeze, if there is one at all. The air hangs thick, unmoving, filled with the smell of rot, wet earth, and smoke. Every breath feels borrowed, shallow, like you're trying to suck oxygen through a sponge. You watch steam rise from the ground after rain, curling upward mixing with the haze until you're walking through a cloud that tastes like mud. The horizon is never clear. Your world shrinks to a few feet of dripping vines, your vision blurred with sweat that no rag can keep clear. Dehydration creeps in fast. You drink from your canteen, the water warm, tasting faintly of iodine and metal. It doesn't refresh you. It just sits heavy in your gut, making you queasy. Minutes later, you're sweating it out again, salt stinging your eyes, soaking your shirt until it clings tighter. You never feel quenched. The thirst always lingers, a dry scratch in your throat, even as sweat pours freely. You can't tell if you're too hot, too tired, or just dehydrated. The symptoms blur until everything feels like one long haze of weakness. You try to pace yourself, slow your steps, keep your breathing steady, but the heat doesn't care. Your heart pounds anyway, thudding hard in your chest as if trying to break free. The flamethrower tanks add their own punishment, pressing against you like a stove strapped to your back. The fuel inside grows hot as the sun rises, and though you tell yourself it won't ignite, the warmth radiates into your spine until you're convinced you're already burning. You shift, adjust, lean forward to take pressure off, but it follows you. Always heavy, always hot, always there. The men around you look the same. Shirts plastered to their chests, trousers dark with sweat, helmets tilted forward to keep the sting out of their eyes. Faces shine with moisture, streaked with mud where they've wiped with dirty hands. No one looks clean. No one looks comfortable. Mouths hang open, panting quietly, though no one admits it. The heat reduces everyone to the same hunched, dragging shape. It pulls the fight out of you before the enemy even shows up. At night, you hope for relief, but it doesn't come. The sun goes down, but the humidity doesn't fade. The air stays thick, unmoving, still heavy with the day's sweat. You lie awake, sticky against your damp blanket, wiping at your neck, scratching at the rashes that spread across your skin. You dream of air moving freely, of cold wind on your face, of dry sheets. Then you wake to the same heaviness pressing down, the same smell of sweat and mildew, the same heat waiting before the fire. The march is never just walking. Back home, walking is casual, something you do without thinking. Out here, it's a trial. Every step feels like dragging your body through quicksand, and every ounce of weight on your back multiplies until it feels like you're carrying someone else's body along with your own. The ground is never solid. Sometimes it's the sticky mud that clings to your boots, sucking so hard it feels like the earth itself is trying to steal them off your feet. Sometimes it's roots and rocks hidden under leaves, waiting to twist your ankles, send you sprawling face first with the tanks pressing down harder as you hit the ground. You curse under your breath, scramble back up, and fall into line again, because stopping isn't an option. The hills are the worst. The jungle doesn't ease you into them. One moment you're trudging along flat ground, and the next you're staring up at an incline that looks endless. The mud is slick, the air is thick, and the straps bite deeper with every step upward. You hunch forward, trying to use your whole body to pull the weight, sweat pouring off your face in sheets. The tanks press harder against your back, sliding with each step until your shoulders burn like they're being sawed through. Your legs shake, your knees buckle, but the line keeps moving. You dig your boots into the muck, push upward, and hope your body doesn't give out before the top. The swamps aren't much better. You wade in the water rising past your ankles, your knees, sometimes your waist. The mud beneath is soft and sucking, each step a gamble whether you'll lift your boot free or lose it entirely. The tanks shift with the water, dragging you backward, pulling you deeper into the muck. You lean forward, push hard, and feel the straps slice tighter into your shoulders. The water seeps into your boots, your socks, your trousers, cold at first but quickly warm as your body heat spreads through it. You can feel leeches latch on, invisible at first, then unmistakable as the slow pull of blood begins. You don't stop to peel them off. You keep moving, one leg dragging after the other, while branches snag at your gear and mosquitoes swarm your face. The sound of the march is its own misery. The squelch of boots in mud, the slosh of fuel inside the tanks, the heavy breathing of men trying not to collapse. It blends into a rhythm, a slow, punishing beat that drives into your skull. You hear the clink of metal, the creak of straps, the occasional grunt when someone stumbles. Conversation is rare. No one wastes breath talking. Every ounce of energy is spent on the next step, the next rise, the next patch of swamp that feels deeper than the last. Your hands are never free. One grips the rifle, the other the flamethrower's nozzle, heavy and awkward. You can't swing your arms for balance. You just stagger forward, your body bent into a permanent hunch, trying to balance 70 pounds of explosive weight on your spine. When you slip, the tank shifts sharply, threatening to drag you down completely. You slam your knee into the mud, brace with your hands, and push yourself back up while the straps cut deeper. The ache never leaves. It just grows heavier, seeping into your bones, settling into your muscles like it belongs there. Sometimes the march takes you through elephant grass, taller than your head. You push through with the tanks catching every stalk, tugging at you until it feels like the grass itself wants you stuck. Blades cut at your arms, leaving shallow slices that sting with sweat. Bugs hidden in the stalks swarm your face, crawling into your eyes, your ears, your collar. You don't stop. You can't stop. The line moves forward, and you drag yourself with it, the flamethrower pressing down heavier with each foot of ground you cover. There are no breaks that feel like breaks. When the order comes to halt, you drop to your knees, the tanks pulling you down with a thud. Your breath comes in ragged gasps, your arms trembling. You wipe sweat from your eyes, only for more to drip down instantly. You try to shift the straps, ease the bruises, but it's temporary. The order comes to move again, and you heave yourself back up, the weight settling like a hammer across your spine. You wonder how much longer you can do this, how many more miles your legs will carry you before they fold. Then you stop thinking and just move, because thinking only makes it worse. The hills keep coming, the swamps keep rising, the mud never ends. Every step forward feels like punishment for something you can't name, a debt you didn't choose but still have to pay. And the worst part is knowing that even when the march stops, even when you finally unbuckle the straps and let the tank slump into the dirt, the weight doesn't really leave. Your back still throbs, your shoulders still burn, your legs still shake. You lie down in the mud, close your eyes and dream of walking without burden. Then you wake up, strap it on again, and start marching through hell all over. When the sun finally drops, the jungle doesn't rest. It only changes shape. The light fades fast under the canopy, swallowed until you're left in near darkness long before the sky is fully black. The heat doesn't leave with it. The air stays thick, damp, and unmoving, but now it carries more noise. Frogs croak in endless guttural rhythm. Insects buzz and whine. Birds shriek without warning. And every few minutes, something rustles in the brush, just far enough away to keep you guessing. You lie there, helmet pulled low, finger brushing the trigger of your rifle, and remind yourself that most of those sounds are just animals. The problem is, you can never be sure. You set up your spot for the night, if you can call it that. A shallow hole scraped into the mud. Maybe a poncho strung up overhead if there's time. The ground is always wet, sucking the warmth out of you as soon as you settle down. The smell rises immediately. Rot, mildew, sweat, smoke from earlier fires. All of it mixing into the air until every breath feels like inhaling compost. Mosquitoes swarm instantly, their whine a constant presence by your ears, their bites peppering your skin until it burns from scratching. You spray repellent if you have it, but it barely slows them down. Then come the rats. They move like shadows, darting across your gear, scratching at rations, squeaking in the brush. You see their eyes flash when the moonlight slips through the canopy. They're bold, used to soldiers now, unafraid of boots or gunmetal. They crawl over packs in search of crumbs, sometimes right across your legs when you're half asleep. You swat at them, curse under your breath, but they always come back. Some chew through food packets, some chew through clothing, some chew through you if you lie too still. You've heard stories of men waking up to find their ears gnawed, blood streaked across their cheeks. It doesn't sound like an exaggeration. Sleep doesn't come easy, and when it does, it isn't deep. You drift in and out, every sound jolting you awake. A snapping twig could be a rat. It could also be a man crawling closer with a knife. You can't tell. You keep your rifle close, the nozzle of the flamethrower leaning against your side, though the thought of firing it in the dark is worse than the thought of being unarmed. The fire would blind you, mark your position, and make you a target. So you lie there, waiting, straining your ears, your body tense even in half dreams. The fear never leaves. You try to tell yourself that you'll hear the enemy coming, that you'll see something move that shouldn't, that someone else will notice first. But the jungle is perfect cover. Darkness hides everything, and silence is only ever temporary. When the gunfire does come, it's sudden, sharp, echoing through the trees until you can't tell where it's from. You jolt upright, heart hammering, sweat already dripping down your spine. Sometimes it was just nerves. A man firing at a shadow, at a sound he couldn't place. Sometimes it wasn't. Either way, you're awake again, ears straining harder, waiting for the next crack of gunfire or the thump of mortar shells. And then there are the traps. You know they're out there, waiting. Punji pits dug deep, lined with sharpened stakes that fester with rot, so even a shallow cut turns septic. Tripwires stretched low between trees, linked to grenades or mines. Spikes hidden under brush, bamboo whips rigged to swing out and impale. At night, they're invisible. You imagine them every time you shift, every time you take a step away from your hole to relieve yourself. One wrong move, one hidden wire, and you're finished before anyone can even reach you. The thought keeps you still, bladder aching, legs cramping, but you don't risk moving. The jungle is patient, and it's always waiting for the careless. Sometimes the night is interrupted by flares. A hiss, a sudden burst of light, white and blinding, flooding the canopy for a few seconds. You squint, rifle raised, scanning the trees, every shadow suddenly alive. When the light fades, the darkness feels worse, heavier, like the jungle has closed in tighter. Your eyes ache, your heart pounds, and you wonder if the flare meant anything, or if it was just another false alarm. Either way, you're more awake than before. By midnight, exhaustion fights with fear. Your body wants to shut down. Your muscles tremble with fatigue. Your eyelids droop. But your mind won't let go. It runs in circles, replaying every noise, every rustle, every faint snap. You shift onto your side, the damp soaking through, your cheek pressed against the mud. You can feel movement under the ground. Worms, insects, roots pushing slowly, reminding you the earth itself is alive. You close your eyes, force yourself into a shallow half sleep, and hope nothing drags you out of it. Morning doesn't bring rest. It just means you survived another night. You peel yourself off the mud, brush away ants from your arms, shake off rats that scattered as the first light crept in. Your body feels stiff, swollen from bites, damp from sweat, but you move anyway. There's no recovery here, no real rest. Just another day stacked on top of another night, each one wearing you down piece by piece until you forget what it feels like to sleep without fear. Food isn't comfort here. It isn't even food in the way you used to know it. It's rations, sealed in cans and pouches, stacked in crates that sat too long in damp storage before being hauled across the ocean. They arrive already tired, dented, their labels smudged, the contents inside older than you want to admit. You open them because you have to, not because you want to. Hunger doesn't give you much of a choice. The smell hits first. A sharp tang of metal mixed with rot, the kind of odour that clings to your fingers after you pry the lid back with your knife. Sometimes it's faint, sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's always there. You lean back instinctively, turn your head, and then remind yourself you'll still eat it anyway, because no matter how bad it smells, it's what you've got. The first bite never matches the smell. It's worse. Canned meat comes out with a wet sucking sound, sliding into your canteen cup with a wobble. It jiggles, pink or grey, coated in fat that looks like candle wax. You slice off a piece, chew, and regret it instantly. The taste is salt, grease, and something faintly sweet in the worst way. It coats your tongue, sticks to your teeth, clogs your throat. You swallow, and it feels like it moves slowly, as if your body is protesting the decision. You tell yourself it's protein. You tell yourself it will keep you alive. You take another bite because you have to, not because you want to. Crackers come in small brown wrappers, 4 squares that crumble into dust the moment you touch them. They taste like cardboard, soaked in flour, dry enough to scrape your throat raw. You eat them anyway, dipping them into canned meat or peanut butter when you're lucky, softening them with coffee when you're not. The crumbs stick in your teeth, filling the gaps between swollen gums, making you spit brown paste into the mud. You chew because there's nothing else. Powdered drinks pretend to help. Orange powder that turns your canteen water into something the colour of rust, tasting faintly of sugar and chemicals. Instant coffee granules that never fully dissolve, floating on the surface in gritty clumps. You drink it fast, the bitterness stinging your tongue, because at least it tastes like something. Then the nausea creeps in, your stomach lurching as it tries to decide if the combination of spoiled meat, dry crackers, and bitter coffee was worth keeping. Sometimes it wins. sometimes it doesn't. The fruit tins are supposed to be a treat. They're small, rare, and usually traded like treasure. But when you finally get one, you peel the lid back and find mush. Peaches, pears, pineapple, all collapsed into the same syrupy sludge, the sweetness cloying, artificial, almost sickening. You spoon it down fast before the flies gather, ignoring the way it coats your lips and fingers in sticky film. For a moment, it reminds you of home, of canned fruit in kitchens with clean air and clean tables. Then the moment passes, and you're back in the mud, licking syrup from your hand because you don't want to waste it. Chocolate sometimes shows up, part of the ration packs, but it's chalky, dried out, tasting faintly of dust. It melts instantly in the heat, smearing across your fingers, staining your uniform, sticking to your gear. You suck it down anyway, because even chalky chocolate is better than the grey meat or the dry crackers. You savour it for a moment, then it's gone, leaving only more thirst and more sticky sweat. You get used to the sameness quickly. Every meal tastes like salt, grease, cardboard, or chemicals. There's no fresh bread, no hot meal from a stove, no vegetables that haven't been boiled into mush months ago. Just the same tins, the same pouches, the same faint stink of death when you tear them open. Some men trade for variety, swapping meat for crackers, crackers for coffee, coffee for fruit. Others hoard, saving a rare item for a day they can't stand the taste anymore. It doesn't matter in the long run. It all blends together. The smell of rations never goes away. It seeps into your gear, into your clothes, into the mud you toss the empty tins into. Even when you're not eating, you catch it in the air. The sour tang of spoiled fat, the metallic bite of old cans, the faint sweetness of syrup gone wrong. You smell it on your breath, in your sweat, mixed with the mildew and rot of the jungle. You taste it when you're half asleep, when you wake with a dry mouth, when you cough into your hand. Eating becomes less about hunger and more about survival. You don't eat because you want to. You eat because you know you have to, because the march ahead won't let you go without. The food doesn't comfort. It doesn't even fill you the way it should. It just sits there, heavy, reminding you that even meals are punishment in this place. You scrape the last bits out of the tin, swallow them down, wipe your hand on your trousers, and wait for the next day when you'll do it all over again. You tell yourself the enemy is human, that it's the Viet Cong hiding out there somewhere, watching, waiting. But the truth is, the jungle fights you just as hard, maybe harder, and it never stops. You can't separate the two. One uses the other, and together they close in on you from every side. The Viet Cong aren't soldiers in the way you imagined. They're shadows. You don't see them until it's too late. A flash of movement, the crack of a rifle, and then silence again. They know the terrain better than you ever will. They live in it, disappear into it, move through it like smoke, while you stumble and sweat under 70 pounds of gear. They don't line up to fight. They hit you from nowhere, vanish before you can return fire, and leave you staring into a wall of green, sweating, heart pounding, wondering if you imagined it. You march with your eyes scanning the trees, the brush, the ground, but it never feels like enough. They're out there, watching you, knowing exactly where you'll step, where you'll pause, where the trail forces you into a choke point. They set traps where you least expect them, burying stakes in mud, stringing wires low enough to snag your boot. Sometimes it's explosives. Sometimes it's sharpened bamboo meant to cripple instead of kill. A scream erupts from the line, and you know someone has found one. The rest of you freeze, every muscle tight, waiting for the next one to snap. When the fighting starts, it's sudden and short. Gunfire tears through the air, deafening, echoing between trees until you can't tell where it's from. You dive into the mud, hugging the ground, while rounds snap overhead. You grip the nozzle of the flamethrower, knowing it makes you a bigger target the moment you stand. The tanks press against your spine like they're waiting for a bullet. You hesitate, because you know the enemy's eyes are already on you. When the order finally comes, you rise, fire roaring, and the jungle itself ignites. The flames drive them out, but they don't stay gone. The moment the fuel runs dry, the smoke clears, and silence falls, they slip back into the trees. You're left with smouldering stumps, blackened earth, and the smell of burning that sticks in your throat. You can't tell if you killed them or just scattered them. You can't tell if they're 10 feet away or a mile. The jungle swallows the answer. And then there's the jungle itself. It's not just background. It's alive, and it doesn't care who you are. Vines grab at your arms, thorns tear your skin, roots trip you when you're already exhausted. Insects bite constantly, some so small you don't even see them until your skin swells. Leeches wait in the mud, attaching silently, fattening themselves on your blood while you march. The air itself feels hostile, thick with moisture, filling your lungs with heaviness until every breath is a chore. The ground shifts, giving way under your boots, sucking you deeper, pulling you down. Even when it's quiet, it isn't peace. The silence feels worse. It presses into your ears, makes you hyper-aware of every drip of water, every creak of a branch. You start to hear things that aren't there. Footsteps in the distance, whispers carried by the wind. Your nerves stretch thin, waiting for a sudden crack of gunfire, a burst of heat, a shadow darting between trees. You don't relax, not for a second. Relaxing here is how you end up dead. The jungle hides them perfectly. Camouflage doesn't have to be clever when the world around you is already camouflage. The canopy blocks the sun, shadows overlap until your eyes play tricks, and even when you're staring straight at it, you can't be sure what you're seeing. Was that branch just a branch? Was that mound of leaves covering a pit? Was that figure ahead a tree trunk, or a man holding still? You squint, you strain, and before you decide, it moves. Or worse, it doesn't. You start to hate the sound of birds, because sometimes their sudden silence means something else is moving. You hate the wind through the trees, because it disguises footsteps. You hate the rain, because it masks everything, soaking you while the enemy slips closer under its cover. The jungle itself is their ally, and you're the intruder. Every day reinforces it. Every march, every ambush, every burned clearing that regrows in days instead of weeks. You fight the Viet Cong, but you never stop fighting the jungle. You don't know which one will get you first. The bullet you won't hear, the trap you won't see, or the sickness creeping into your skin from mud and rot. They work together, tightening around you, wearing you down until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. You carry the tanks. You shoulder the nozzle. You walk step after step, knowing that the enemy is everywhere, and the ground you're standing on doesn't want you there either. The first thing is the sound. It isn't a pop, or a crack, or even the steady chatter of a machine gun. It's a roar, violent and alive, bursting out the moment you squeeze the trigger. The hose jolts in your hands, The tanks vibrate against your back, and the noise swallows everything else. Men shout, rifles crack, branches snap, but none of it reaches you through the flamethrower's voice. It drowns the world, filling your head until there's nothing but fire. Then comes the heat. It surges forward, a wall that doesn't just hit what you're aiming at, but pushes back into you. Your face tightens instantly, skin pulled tight like leather. Sweat boils out of your pores. Your throat sears as the air itself turns molten. The roar blasts forward, but the heat feels like it's wrapping around you, smothering you, clinging to your uniform, burning your eyes until you can barely keep them open. You squint, you cough, you keep firing because you have to, even as the flame feels like it's trying to consume you too. The smoke arrives in seconds. Thick, black, choking, rolling upward in clouds that blind you as much as the enemy. It fills your lungs, stings your eyes, coats your tongue in bitter film. You cough, spit, try to breathe through cloth, but it doesn't matter. The smoke owns the air now. You hear men shouting somewhere behind it, muffled, distorted, and you can't tell if they're your own or theirs. You can't see more than a few feet ahead. You fire anyway because the order was given, because this is your job, because stopping feels worse than pressing the trigger again. The fire itself doesn't behave like a bullet. It moves like liquid, arcing through the air, hissing as it clings to whatever it touches. Trees, brush, bunkers, bodies. It sticks and spreads, burning with a hunger that nothing puts out quickly. The smell hits you even before the flames die down. Burning wood, burning earth, burning flesh. It mingles into a stench so heavy it sticks in your nostrils for days. You swallow hard, but the taste of it rides your tongue. It doesn't leave when you rinse your mouth, doesn't fade when you try to sleep. It's inside you, part of you, whether you wanted it or not. There's no aiming cleanly with it. You point, you sweep, you try to control the spray, but the flamethrower has a mind of its own. The hose jerks, the tanks shift, the flame bursts unpredictably. Sometimes it reaches farther than you expect, sometimes it sputters out short. You panic for a second when it stutters, when the fuel coughs instead of flows, when you feel it dribble close to your boots. You picture the tanks igniting, yourself going up in seconds, and you wrestle the nozzle back into line, praying it holds. The enemy's reaction is immediate. They scatter, they scream, they vanish into tunnels, into brush, anywhere out of sight. Some don't make it. You hear the screams cut short, swallowed by fire and smoke. You don't let yourself look too closely. You can't. The image burns into your mind anyway. Figures flailing, collapsing, the flames sticking no matter how hard they thrash. You blink hard, focus on the nozzle, on the roar, on anything but the shapes caught in the fire. When the tanks run dry, it ends as suddenly as it began. Silence doesn't return right away. Your ears ring, your lungs still choke, your arms ache from gripping the hose. You look around, trying to make sense of the world through smoke and haze. Your chest heaves, every breath shallow, your throat raw. You feel the weight of the empty tanks pressing down heavier than when they were full, because now they're just dead weight. No weapon left, only a target strapped to your spine. The terror of ignition isn't just in battle, it stays with you after. At night, you hear the roar again, muffled in your dreams, jolting you awake in the mud. You smell the smoke even when the air is still. You feel the heat on your face when the sun rises, and for a second you think it's fire again. You look at the nozzle leaning against your pack, the tanks glinting faintly in the damp light, and you feel your stomach twist. You know what it will do when you squeeze the trigger. You know what it will do to them, and to you, and to everyone standing too close. You know you'll do it again, because that's the job. And the thought alone is enough to make your hands shake before you ever touch the valve. The weapon doesn't care who it touches. You tell yourself it's aimed at the enemy, that the fire only finds those hiding in bunkers, tunnels, or behind tree lines. But in the chaos of combat, in the smoke and noise, you can't control where it spreads. The first burst sends flames crawling farther than you expect, creeping across brush, racing up trees, spilling into places you didn't mean to reach. You try to sweep carefully, but the fire doesn't stop neatly at the edge of your aim. It lingers, it clings, it spreads to whatever is unlucky enough to be in the way. Sometimes it's your own men. They're too close, trying to cover you, rushing forward without realizing where the flame will travel. You squeeze the trigger, and the heat engulfs the space between you. The smoke hides everything for a moment, then clears just enough for you to see their uniforms blackened, their faces twisted in agony, their bodies thrashing against the earth. You didn't mean it. They know you didn't mean it. But intention doesn't matter when fire clings to skin. You smell it instantly, the sickly sweet stench that curls into your nostrils and won't leave. You tell yourself it was an accident, that you were following orders, that they shouldn't have been that close. None of it helps. And then there are the civilians. You march into villages, told the enemy is hiding there, using the huts and the tunnels beneath them as cover. Orders come down, sharp and simple. Clear it. You raise the nozzle, squeeze the trigger, and watch as the fire leaps forward. The grass huts ignite instantly, flames racing up the walls, collapsing roofs in seconds. Screams rise from inside, high-pitched, panicked, too human to mistake. Figures stumble out, not soldiers but women, children, old men who never held a rifle in their lives. You freeze, your stomach twisting, but the flames are already on them, crawling over their clothes, their hair, their skin. You hear their cries, see their arms flailing, and you can't stop it. The fire doesn't distinguish between combatant and bystander. It consumes whatever it touches. Afterward you stand in the smoke, staring at blackened huts, smouldering ruins, bodies curled in unnatural shapes. You tell yourself the enemy used them as shields, that it wasn't your fault, that the blame lies with someone else. The words feel hollow even as you repeat them. The faces stay with you, the screams echo long after the fire dies. You close your eyes at night, and they come back instantly, more vivid than anything else you've seen. The men around you don't talk about it, but you can see it in their eyes too. A quiet guilt, a heaviness that grows with every mission. Some joke, trying to laugh it off, saying the fire did what it was supposed to, that it scared the enemy, that it cleared the ground. Others stay silent, staring at the dirt, chewing their cigarettes without lighting them. Everyone knows, everyone saw, and no one really believes the excuses. The worst part is that it works. The fire clears bunkers, flushes out tunnels, drives enemies out of cover where rifles and machine guns finish the job. It terrifies, it destroys, it gets results. And that's why you keep carrying it, why you keep pulling the trigger even when your stomach churns at what it does. You're told it's necessary, that it saves lives in the long run, that one burst of fire prevents an ambush later. You nod, you obey, you keep moving, But deep down you know the fire is blind. It doesn't choose. It just burns. At night, when you lie in the mud, the faces come back. Friends caught too close, civilians running from huts, even enemies you burned without hesitation. Their screams fold together into a single sound that sits in your ears long after the jungle falls quiet. You smell smoke when there is none, taste it when you swallow, feel it clink to your clothes even after you've marched for miles. The guilt becomes part of you, heavier than the tanks, heavier than the mud. You don't talk about it, because there are no words that make it lighter. You just carry it, the way you carry everything else, until it feels permanent. And maybe it is. The fire dies fast in the jungle, but inside your head it never goes out. Out here, wounds don't stay clean. The jungle doesn't let them. Every cut, every blister, every scrape fills with dirt, sweat, and whatever parasites decide to crawl in while you're not paying attention. The courtmen try. They carry bandages, iodine, morphine when there's enough to spare. But most of the time it's too little, too late, and the jungle chews through everything they can offer. Burns are the worst. You see them more often than you want to admit. The flamethrower doesn't just hurt the enemy. It hurts the man carrying it, the men standing too close, anyone caught in its path when it sputters or misfires. Fuel splashes where it shouldn't, ignites in the wrong place, clings to skin. The flames don't flicker out quickly. They stay, sticking, eating through cloth, eating through flesh. When the fire finally dies, what's left doesn't look human anymore. Charred skin peels away at the touch, muscle exposed, nerves screaming louder than any voice can. The smell makes you gag, even when you try to hold your breath. There's no real treatment for it out here. Cold water is a dream. Sterile gauze doesn't exist in enough supply. The cordman kneels in the mud, sweat dripping into the wound as he works, trying to peel away the worst of the burned fabric, trying to wrap it with whatever he has. Sometimes it's a strip of cloth cut from another man's shirt. Sometimes it's nothing more than a bandage already streaked with dirt. Pain relief is a shot of morphine, if you're lucky enough to get one. If not, it's a rag in your teeth and hands holding you down while the work is done. Infection starts small. A blister rubbed open by wet socks. A cut from a bamboo stalk. A leech bite you didn't notice in time. They fester fast, swelling into angry red welts, oozing pus that soaks through your trousers. You scratch at them until the skin tears, making it worse. And by the time the corpseman sees it, the infection has already crawled deeper. They clean it as best they can, douse it with iodine that burns worse than the wound itself, then wrap it tight and hope. But the jungle doesn't care about hope. Within days it's back, worse than before. Sometimes you limp. Sometimes you can't walk at all. And out here, not walking isn't an option. Fevers come with the infections. Your body shakes even in the heat, sweat pouring faster than usual, lips cracked, eyes glassy. Malaria, dysentery, jungle fevers no one can name. They all blur together. You lie in the mud, trembling, and the line keeps moving. Maybe they give you quinine, maybe they don't. Maybe you recover, maybe you don't. There's no time to rest, no hospital bed waiting. The corpsman checks you, mutters a few words, shoves canteen water at you, and then you're back on your feet because staying behind isn't an option. Wounds from combat add to it all. Gunshots tear through flesh, leaving ragged holes that pour blood into the mud. Shrapnel slices deep, jagged pieces of metal buried where fingers can't reach. The corpsman digs with a knife if he has to. No anaesthesia, no sterile tools, just grit and urgency. The man screams, fists pounding against the dirt, teeth clenched until they crack. You hold him down, your own hands trembling, praying he doesn't bleed out before the work is finished. When it's done, the wound is packed with gauze if there's any left, with rags if there isn't. You tell him he'll make it, even when you don't believe it. There's no real relief. Painkillers are scarce, and when they're gone, there's nothing left but gritted teeth and endurance. You watch men march on broken feet, limping with every step, bandages soaked through, flies buzzing around the edges of wounds. They chew on sticks, bite their lips, mutter curses under their breath, anything to keep moving. The alternative is staying still, and staying still means being left behind. Out here, left behind is the same as gone. You think about hospitals back home, clean sheets, white walls, doctors with steady hands and shelves full of medicine. Then you look at the corpsman kneeling in the mud, shirtless, hands shaking as he ties off another bandage with strips torn from his own uniform. You see the flies landing before the cloth is even tied. You smell the infection already setting in. You hear the moans, low and constant, of men who know this wound won't heal right, who know the fever is coming, who know the jungle is already claiming them piece by piece. You wonder what happens when it's you. When the straps of the flamethrower rub too long, when the tanks shift and crush your back, when a fall splits your skin wide open, when the fire sputters and sprays where it shouldn't, catching your legs, your arms. You picture yourself lying in the mud, skin peeling, the corpsman kneeling over you with nothing but a dirty bandage and a half-empty syringe. You picture the pain, sharp and endless, and the long march that doesn't stop, no matter what you're carrying. The weapon doesn't wait for the enemy to hurt you. It does the job on its own. Carrying it is punishment from the start. The weight grinds into your shoulders, carves grooves into your flesh, leaves your back in permanent ache. After hours of marching, the muscles in your neck seize tight, your lower spine screams, your legs tremble under the load. Even when you set the tanks down, the pain doesn't go away. You lie in the mud and still feel the straps pressing, the weight bearing down, the ghost of 70 pounds that never really leaves. Your skin breaks first. The straps rub against raw patches already softened by sweat, layers of skin peeling away until the sores weep. Infection crawls in fast, angry and red, oozing pus that sticks to the canvas webbing. You shift constantly, trying to find a position that doesn't burn, but the tanks always find a way to press harder. You smear ointment when you have it, wrap cloth when you can, but the relief lasts minutes. By the time you're back on your feet, it's tearing again, the wounds spreading wider. The heat adds another layer. The tanks absorb sunlight until they burn against your back, radiating warmth that seeps into your spine. Even when you're standing still, you feel it heating you from behind, sweat pouring down in rivers. When you fire, the blast adds more, the flames throwing heat back into your face, your arms, your chest. Your skin prickles, your eyes sting, your throat tightens from the smoke. You cough until your ribs ache, spit black phlegm into the dirt, wipe soot from your lips with a shaking hand. The fire marks you, even when you're the one holding the nozzle. Your lungs never recover. Each burst fills the air with smoke, thick and oily, coating everything it touches. You breathe it whether you want to or not, choking on the bitterness, coughing until you gag. The smell sticks in your nose, the taste coats your tongue, the residue settles in your chest. You wheeze at night, trying to sleep, your lungs heavy, every breath shallow. You wonder if it will ever leave, if years from now you'll still be coughing up soot, lungs scarred by the same weapon you were told would protect you. Your mind carries its own scars. The moment you pull the trigger, you're bound to what happens next. The screams don't vanish with the smoke. The shapes thrashing in the flames stay with you, sharper than anything else you've seen. You try not to think about it, but the memories come uninvited. At night you hear them again, high-pitched, desperate, cut off too quickly. You wake with your fists clenched, heart racing, sweat pouring down your face. The men around you don't ask. They have their own memories. But yours are different, louder, brighter, impossible to escape. The fear is constant, not of what you'll do, but of what will be done to you. You know the tanks are targets. You know the enemy will aim for them first. That one bullet could turn you into a torch. You imagine it every time you move through the brush, every time you hear a shot crack nearby. You can feel it happening before it does. The hiss of fuel, the rush of flame, your own body igniting. You wonder if it will be quick. You wonder if it will be slow. And you keep walking anyway, because you don't have a choice. Even your own men look at you differently. They respect you for carrying it, maybe, but they also keep their distance. No one wants to be too close to a man strapped to a bomb. You notice the gap around you in the line, the way no one lingers near when you sit down. They know what you carry. They know what it can do to you. And to them, if they're unlucky enough to stand beside you when the tanks go. You don't blame them. You do the same. Your body wears down fast. Blisters on your hands burst from gripping the nozzle. Calluses torn open by the hose jerking with every burst. Your arms ache from holding it steady. Your shoulders throb from carrying it. Your legs buckle under the constant weight. You walk bent forward, spine curved, chest compressed. After weeks, your posture changes permanently. You feel older than you are, your body broken down faster than time should allow. Even when you make it out of the jungle alive, the flamethrower doesn't let you go. The burns fade into scars, the rashes into marks, but the damage inside lingers. Your lungs carry the smoke. Your back carries the weight. Your mind carries the screams. You were told it was a weapon, told it was power. But what it really did was take pieces of you every time you strapped it on, pieces you'll never get back. The jungle doesn't need gunfire to bring you down. Sometimes all it takes is the sun and the air. The heat never stops pressing on you, rising with the day, soaking into your skin, into your bones. Sweat pours until it feels like your body has nothing left, and then it keeps pouring, salt streaking your eyes, soaking your uniform until it clings like a second skin. You drink from your canteen, but the water is warm, tasting faintly of iodine and rust. It doesn't quench anything. It just sloshes in your stomach, making you nauseous, making you thirstier. You swallow more, and the cycle repeats. The corpsmen warn you about dehydration. They hand out salt tablets, little chalky things you choke down with another gulp of warm water. They tell you it will keep you balanced, keep the cramps away, keep your muscles from seizing up on the march. But the tablets dry your mouth instantly, the taste lingering like dust, and you're left gulping even more water to wash it down. The more you drink, the heavier your stomach feels, while the rest of your body still screams for relief. Your head throbs constantly. It starts as a dull ache at the back of your skull, then sharpens with every hour under the sun. The helmet only makes it worse, trapping the heat, pressing the sweat into your scalp until it runs down the sides of your face. Your vision blurs when you stand too quickly, dark spots flashing at the edges of your sight. Your heart races even when you're still, thudding too fast, as if it's trying to keep up with the heat. You tell yourself to breathe slower, to steady it, but it doesn't listen. It keeps pounding, faster, harder, until you feel dizzy. The flamethrower turns all of it into punishment. The tanks press into your spine like hot stones, heating up with the sun until they radiate against your back. Every step feels heavier, every incline a threat. You lean forward, panting, legs shaking under the weight. Your boots sink deeper into the mud. The straps bite harder into your shoulders. Your lungs burn with the effort of dragging yourself one more yard forward. You think about stopping, just for a moment, just long enough to catch your breath. But the march never slows. The line moves, and you move with it. Or you're left behind. You've seen men drop. 1 second they're trudging beside you, bent under the weight like everyone else. And the next they're face down in the mud, arms twitching, body shaking. Heat stroke doesn't ask permission. It just takes them. You shout for the corpsman. Help drag the man into the shade. Peel his shirt off while his skin burns under your hands. His lips crack when he tries to speak. His eyes roll back. His chest heaves in shallow gasps. You fan him with your helmet, pour water onto his head, pray it's enough to bring him back. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. When it isn't, you carry on anyway, stepping past his still body, the march swallowing him like the jungle swallows everything. Exhaustion builds slower, but it's worse because you never notice it creeping in. Day after day, march after march, your body loses a little more. Sleep never restores you. Food doesn't fuel you. You wake up tired, you march tired, you collapse at night still tired. Your legs feel heavy before you've even strapped on the tanks. Your arms tremble before you've even gripped the nozzle. The ache in your spine is permanent now, a dull throb that doesn't fade, no matter how long you rest. Your mind follows the same path. At first you're sharp, listening for every rustle, scanning every shadow. After weeks, it dulls. You hear the noises but don't react as fast. You see movement but second guess yourself. Fatigue clouds every decision, turning everything into a blur. You forget what day it is. Forget how long you've been here. The only thing that matters is the next step, the next patch of mud, the next hill. You stop thinking about why you're here. Stop questioning what it means. You just move because moving is the only thing left. The jungle doesn't let you sleep deeply. Rats scurry across your gear. Mosquitoes whine in your ears. Every snap of a twig jolts you awake. You close your eyes for an hour, maybe 2, but your body never reaches rest. You dream of water, cold and clear, streams running over smooth stones, ice clinking in a glass. Then you wake, mouth dry, throat burning, canteen half empty. You sip the warm water, gag on the taste, swallow anyway. The dream fades into the same sticky heat pressing down again. You wonder sometimes which will get you first, the enemy's bullets or the exhaustion eating you alive from the inside. You've seen men who look fine one day collapse the next. Their body's simply done. You carry the tanks, you drag your boots through the mud, you sweat until you have nothing left to sweat, and you keep moving. Because you know that if you stop, the jungle will finish what it started. The only thing that feels like it belongs to another world is the mail. It comes in bundles, dropped off when supply lines manage to reach you. Envelopes already smudged with dirt and sweat from the journey. Sometimes they've been sitting in sacks for weeks, bent at the corners, water-stained, the ink running where rain leaked through. You hold one in your hands and it feels fragile, lighter than anything else you carry. A piece of paper that somehow made it across an ocean to find you in a hole in the jungle. The handwriting looks strange at first. Too neat, too clean. Words curved carefully across the page, nothing like the scrawled notes passed among men here. You stare at it, your thumb rubbing over the letters as if to make sure they're real. Then you unfold the paper, and the smell hits you faintly. The ghost of a home you barely remember. Perfume from a girlfriend. Kitchen smoke from a mother's stove. The faint dust of a desk drawer back in a room that still waits for you. You close your eyes and for a moment you're there, sitting in a chair holding the letter in peace instead of squatting in mud with mosquitoes biting your neck. The words don't fit the place you're in. They talk about seasons changing, about leaves falling, about snow piling against windows. You read them with sweat dripping from your face, mud squelching under your boots, rats squeaking nearby. They talk about small things. A neighbour's new car, a cousin's wedding, the dog tearing up the garden. The normalcy feels cruel sometimes. You want to smile, but your throat tightens instead. The gap between their world and yours is too wide to bridge with ink. Some letters try harder. They ask how you are, if you're eating enough, if you're keeping safe. You stare at those words the longest, because you don't know how to answer. You could write back and say you're fine, that you're strong, that you'll be home soon. That's what they want to hear. But you'd be lying. You're not fine. You're sweating and filthy. Your skin raw. Your body breaking under the weight. You're not strong. You're tired, scared, and carrying a weapon that feels more like a curse than a shield. You don't know if you'll be home soon. You don't know if you'll be home at all. Sometimes the letters are jokes, filled with stories meant to make you laugh. You try, but the sound feels strange, like it doesn't belong in your throat anymore. Sometimes they're long and rambling, filled with things you never thought you'd miss. The sound of rain on a roof, the smell of clean laundry, the taste of bread fresh from an oven. You read those lines over and over until the paper starts to tear at the folds. Sometimes they're short, only a few lines, but even those make your chest ache. Even the smallest reminder of home is heavier than the tanks you carry. Writing back is harder. The paper they give you is thin, the pencils dull, the words reluctant. You sit there, staring at the blank sheet, listening to men curse or laugh around you, the jungle buzzing in your ears. You try to think of something to say. You don't want to write about the mud, the sweat, the burns, the fear of fire and traps. You don't want to put that weight on them. So you write about the food, the weather, the men in your unit. You keep it light, a postcard version of your life that hides everything else. You fold it, seal it, and send it off, knowing they'll never know the truth. And sometimes you don't write at all. The letter stays folded in your pocket, damp from sweat, edges fraying, the words inside smudged by your thumbprints. You carry it with you until it falls apart, never answering because you don't know how to. Because the distance between here and there is too much. Because you're not sure you'll live long enough for your answer to matter. You tuck it back into your pack, shoulder the tanks again, and march on. At night you pull them out, unfold them carefully, read by the faint glow of a lighter or a flashlight cupped in your hand. The words blur when your eyes grow heavy, but you trace them anyway, as if holding the letters longer might bring you closer to where they came from. You fall asleep with them under your chest, pressed against the mud, and dream of home in colours too sharp to be real. When you wake, the paper is damp again, softening at the edges, fading away just like the memory it carried. You know some of those letters will never be answered. The paper will sit folded in your pocket the day you fall, the ink bleeding into the mud with you. Someone else will find it, read the neat handwriting, and know that whoever wrote it will never get a reply. You learn quickly not to count days. Counting only makes the numbers heavier, and the numbers are already against you. The flamethrower marks you the moment you strap it on. Everyone knows the odds. You are heavier, slower, louder. You carry fuel on your back in a place where fire is death, and the enemy knows it. They see you before they see anyone else. They aim for you first. Your life is measured in seconds the moment you pull the trigger. No one says it out loud, but you can see it in the eyes of the men beside you. They know your chances. They know what it means to stand next to you, to cover you, to rely on you. They don't want your job, but they don't envy you either. They just glance at the tanks and keep a few steps of distance, as if survival might be measured in inches of space. You don't blame them. You would do the same. You start to notice how often the stretcher goes past, how often the chopper lifts away with bodies instead of men sitting upright. Sometimes it's a man you just talked to that morning, his voice still in your head while his body is zipped into a bag. Sometimes it's one of your own, carried out silent, leaving his gear behind in the mud. You stop asking who it was. You stop asking where they were hit. You already know it doesn't take much. A bullet, a trap, a fever. The jungle doesn't care what kills you. It just keeps taking. Morale is a word that sounds official, something the brass likes to measure in reports. Out here, morale is the way men sit in silence instead of talking. It's the way cigarettes burn down without anyone bothering to flick the ash. It's the way letters from home get tucked into packs unread, because the reminder hurts more than it helps. You can see it when a man doesn't even curse after falling in the mud, when he just lies there a moment longer than he should before dragging himself up. You hear it in the sighs that fill the air when orders come to move again, shoulders slumping under the weight before boots even lift. The small things wear you down. The constant wet, the constant heat, the constant fear. Each day takes a piece, and the pieces don't grow back. Some men joke, but the jokes sound brittle. Laughter cut short before it reaches their eyes. Some men get quiet, staring at the ground, walking as if the march is all that's left of them. Some start taking risks, reckless steps forward in firefights, daring the enemy to notice. You can't tell if they're brave or just done. For you, the flamethrower makes everything heavier. You don't just carry the tanks. You carry the knowledge that when the fighting starts, you will be the one they look for first. Every burst reminds you that you have maybe seconds before someone takes their shot. You wonder if you'll hear it. You wonder if it will come from the trees, or the grass, or the shadows behind you. You march anyway, because stopping isn't an option, but each step feels like you're gambling with time you don't own. Sleep doesn't restore you. Food doesn't strengthen you. Water doesn't quench you. Everything is just enough to keep you moving another day, but never enough to make you feel whole. The exhaustion becomes permanent, the kind that sits in your bones and won't leave. You start to forget what it feels like to wake rested, to sit in quiet without your stomach twisted, to believe you'll live long enough to see the next month. Hope becomes something you don't say out loud, because it sounds foolish in the mud. The truth sits heavy, even when no one speaks it. Survival odds are low. Morale is lower. You carry both with you, strapped tight against your body, pressing into your spine heavier than the tanks. The day finally comes when the jungle is behind you, but it doesn't feel like an ending. You board the transport, tanks left behind in the mud, uniforms still damp with stains that never washed out. You sit among men who look like shadows of themselves, skin pale under the grime, eyes hollow, bodies hunched as if they still carry 70 pounds on their backs. No one cheers. No one smiles wide. You leave quietly, the way you lived, with the jungle still clinging to you in sweat and smoke and memory. Home looks strange when you first see it again. Streets are clean, dry, wide open under skies that feel too bright. People walk without watching the tree line, without listening for the snap of branches or the whine of mosquitoes. They laugh easily, like nothing weighs them down. They look at you with polite smiles, nods, questions about where you've been, what you did. You answer the smallest parts, the safe parts, about the heat, the food, the waiting. You don't tell them about the smell of burning flesh, the screams of men caught in fire, the weight of carrying a weapon that felt more like a coffin. You leave those parts buried where they belong, even though they never stop surfacing in your mind. The nights are worse. You lie in a clean bed, sheets tucked tight, but sleep doesn't come. The silence feels wrong. You're used to the jungle's constant noise. The insects, the birds, the rustling, the gunfire in the distance. Now the quiet presses in until your ears ring. You close your eyes, and the silence fills with memories. Flashes of smoke, bursts of fire, the smell that never leaves. You wake drenched in sweat, fists clenched, breath ragged, convinced you've been pulled back into the jungle. You look around, and it's only the bedroom, the curtain still, the lamp untouched, but your heart pounds like you're still carrying the tanks. People tell you to move on, to be grateful you made it back. You nod, you smile when you're expected to, but the words don't reach you. Moving on isn't possible. The jungle follows you everywhere. The scars on your back from the straps never fade. The cough in your chest lingers, soot from the fire still inside you. Every time you catch the smell of gasoline, your stomach knots. Every time you hear a sudden crack, your body jerks before your mind catches up. The war is gone, but it never leaves. You think about the men who didn't return, about the letters that never got answered, about the faces you saw through smoke. You wonder why you carried fire while they carried rifles, why you made it home while they burned in the mud. The guilt stays sharper than any wound. It doesn't heal. It just sits there, heavy, waiting every time you let your guard down. You keep the memories locked tight most of the time. You don't talk about the burns, the screams, the nights where you prayed for rain to wash the soot from your skin. You don't talk about the way your own men avoided you, the way the enemy hunted you, the way the fire marked you long after the tanks were gone. But silence doesn't make it fade. It just buries it deeper, where it waits. The ghosts never leave. They sit at the edge of your bed when the room is dark. They follow you down quiet streets. They rise with the smell of smoke from a neighbour's chimney. They don't shout. They don't fade. They wait in silence, reminding you that carrying fire wasn't something you could put down when you came home. It was something that fused into you, piece by piece, until you carried it forever. So that's what it meant to be the man with the tank strapped to his back. A job no one wanted, given to whoever was strong enough to carry it, or unlucky enough not to look away when the orders were handed out. It wasn't power. It wasn't glory. It was sweat and burns and fear. It was being marked as a target, as a danger to your own men, as someone carrying a weapon that punished you just as much as the people it aimed at. You marched through mud, through swamps, through heat that broke men down faster than bullets. You ate food that barely counted as food, slept in dirt that never let you rest, woke up to bugs and rats crawling over you like it was their jungle, not yours. You learned the jungle itself was as much the enemy as the Viet Cong, and that survival wasn't about strength or courage, but about luck, and how long you could endure being worn away piece by piece. And if you did survive, if you made it out, you didn't really leave it behind. The weight stayed with you, in your lungs, in your scars, in your dreams. The fire followed you home, even when the tanks didn't. You were never just a man again. You were the one who carried fire, and it burned into you in ways that no one else could see. That's why no one wanted the job, and why the ones who had it never forgot.